Hello, hello, class ECE 140. Welcome to part 2 of the theorist lesson. Today we're going to discuss Piaget and Vygotsky. Let me share the screen. Not download it. Let's see how this works out. I might have to go off share and come back again. We'll see. I hope everybody's well, safe, following the quarantine rules. Okay. Can you see that, Jessica?
Yes,
you see that?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Okay. All right. Here we go. So let's talk about Piaget. Ooh, slow down, Jamie. All right. So Piaget is probably the most well-known and widely used theorist in our field. Much of what we do is based on his theories and his research. Although that is fairly recent, before the 1960s, although his research was available and widely known, it wasn't widely accepted, mostly based on the fact that his research was based on his own children. And so that is often seen as not able to be completely unbiased or objective. So it isn't, it's been only maybe the last 60 years that Piaget's research has been used and widely accepted. He is considered a cognitive development theorist. He was really concerned about the thinking process, how we think, how children think, not how much, not quantity, but quality. He believed that children are created learners, that children will naturally search out what they do not know, that they will attempt to understand what they do not know. Piaget also believed that we learn how to think, that our intellectual development, our cognitive development is best developed through active learning, through active involvement in real life experiences, by physically handling objects, by manipulating objects, by playing. Children discover that relationships exist between them. Okay? So overall, that is Piaget. He was concerned about the how of thinking. Okay? How do we help children to develop thinking? Okay? The thought processes. So Piaget had very specific terms and vocabulary for thought processes. He also created a theory for kind of the stages that we go through in our cognitive development. He believed that in our development of thinking, we create schemas. Children create schemas, which is like a labeling, or how we represent what children interact with or what they manipulate in their environment. Okay, whatever stimulation they get, what do they see, what they manipulate, the act of learning. The brain has to do something with it, right? The brain has to organize it. So that organizing and reorganizing is the brain creating schemes or schema. Okay, so if a young child sees a dog, they have to create some way, the brain has to create some way to represent that. So in the brain, a young brain, they will create a schema, right? A labeling for the information that they have about that dog, okay? That's a schema. The process of organizing, okay, or receiving information and the brain doing something with it is called adaptation, okay? This was Piaget's term for receiving new information and the process of organizing it, okay? So according to Piaget, a child receives information, the brain labels it, and then has to organize it. That organizing is called adaptation, okay? Adapting, adaptation. Now, depending on how old the child is, that process is different. Okay? A younger child will assimilate, okay? Which means they will take in that new information and add it to what they already know. Okay, so a very young child has very limited amount of schemas, okay, or categories. So if they have created a category or a schema for a dog, any new information that they receive that is similar, they're unable to create a lot of new schemas. So they have to assimilate that information into a schema they already have. They have to fit it into a schema they already have. So if they see maybe a bear, they might call it a dog. Or if they see a cat, they might call it a dog. So that's a very young child. They have very limited amounts of schemas. They're only able to categorize in very limited ways. So when new information is received, they have to assimilate it, right? They have to interpret it and fit it into already created schemas or already created categories, okay? So if you look at the picture at the bottom, right, banging is a favorite scheme used by babies, right? Everything that they get, they need to bang. That is a schema for them, okay? That is how they learn about the property, okay?
Hey, Jamie, the slides aren't clicking through.
You're not on the thought processes?
No, right now it's still on the title page. I thought you were just lecturing and hadn't gone to a new slide. And then when you said look at the bottom, I realized you were further.
Okay, let me stop share. I'm glad you noticed that before we got too far. Let me try it again. How's that?
There we go. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I don't need to start over, do I?
No, you're good.
Okay, good. The class right now are probably like, please do. All right, you guys. Okay, so a young child, okay, when they receive new information, they assimilate, okay? They have to fit that new information to an already created scheme. So the example at the bottom that you see, and you know babies, right? Young babies, they bang everything. Everything that they get, they're gonna start banging, right? That's the schema that they have for learning about new information, exploring, right? Like Piaget said, exploring their world, right? Actively participating, okay? So a young child, no matter what they get, they're going to bang it, okay? They don't know yet, right, that if they grab an egg and they bang it, it will break. Or if they grab your glasses and they bang it, they will break. Okay? Their brain can't change the scheme that they have of banging. So everything that they get, they will need to bang, right? Bang up it back and forth, okay? So that's assimilating. Now, once they get a little bit older and their brain becomes more mature and capable, they'll start to adjust what they already know to fit into new information, right? So they'll be able to change schemas that they have and also create a lot more schemas, a lot more categories, okay? So they'll start to be able to fit in new information. As they get new information, they'll start to change current schemas and then also create new ones, okay? So now, as they get older and they learn more information about the egg or about your glasses, right? They'll start to realize, oh, that doesn't fit into that schema of banging anymore. I have to create a new schema, right? A new way of my brain learning about the egg or learning about the glasses. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. The last thing that I'm going to share with you about Piaget in regards to the adaptation process, right? Or how Piaget says we process information, our thought processes, is the idea of disequilibrium, okay? Piaget believed that disequilibrium is, it leads to cognitive growth when we're in the process of assimilation, right? Or the process of accommodation, okay? Children are also in disequilibrium, right? When the brain is going from assimilation to accommodation, like they're in that in between of, or let me rephrase that, when they're going from possibly one stage of thinking to another, okay? Right? They're in disequilibrium, okay? So when the brain starts to understand that, oh, I can't bang that egg, right? And the brain is figuring out how to organize that new information, right? Because they're a little bit beyond assimilation, but they're not fully into accommodation, okay? So the brain is figuring out what to do. Piaget believed that children are in a state of disequilibrium, mentally, emotionally, okay? And what that means is maybe there's some confusion or an imbalance, right? Oftentimes when we see children out of nowhere start to act a little different, right? Maybe have a meltdown, right? Out of nowhere, you know what I mean? Maybe be a little bit easily agitated, a little bit aggressive, or maybe shut down a little bit, acting a little bit out of sorts. It could be, depending on where they are in development, that they're going from one stage to another. And this is just a process of growth. I tend to think of it or use this example. If anybody's ever had something happen in their life that like took them out at the knees, right? And, you know, like devastated them. It could be a loss of someone close to them. You know, someone lied to them. They lost their job. Or even something incredibly good, right? Like incredibly good. you think about kind of what that did to you mentally and emotionally for a while, you might remember that you were maybe kind of out of it. Like your thinking wasn't clear. Maybe you couldn't remember things well. You were kind of, couldn't pay attention for very long, easily distracted, over emotional, right? That's what Piaget called disequilibrium, okay? Where your brain now has to process this new information. I was thinking about just now, actually, someone told me today that in their house, one of their children had a meltdown out of nowhere, right? And I wondered, it just made me think, like, we're in a new way of thinking. Our life is completely different, And so for many of us, especially our children, this could be a stage of disequilibrium for them. Like their brain has to create these new schemas, these new ideas of how to do things. Like, wait, I can't go outside anymore. Wait, I have to sit in front of a computer all day and it's not for fun. I mean, all of these things, I don't get to be with my friends. I don't get to see teeth. I mean, all of these things, depending on the child, we all could be in a state of disequilibrium right now. And our brain is restructuring, right? Accommodating to these new experiences. So that is Piaget. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, please, I'm gonna, just a side note, I want to invite you, if you feel like this or Erickson, or when we do Vygotsky, if it would be helpful for you to have further conversation, let us know and we will do a Zoom live, okay? All right. So Piaget was a stage theorist. Oh, come on. Now it's not gonna move. Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh, look at my grandson. So he had several stages. We're only going to talk about 2 because that's in our age group. In birth to around age 2, remember every child's timing is different, he believed that children receive information, our youngest children are receiving information through their senses and through moving their body. That is active learning, right? Using our senses and using our body, okay? Manipulating objects, okay? So Piaget believed in birth to age 2-ish, children, babies are using their senses and motor abilities to promote thinking, okay? What are the senses that babies are using to promote thinking, right? So those are our 5 senses, our smelling, our seeing, our tasting, right? What's the first thing that children do when they get something in their hand? Put it in their mouth, right? They're hearing and they're touching. Is that 5? 1, 2, 3, yeah, 5. Okay, so they're using all of those senses and they're receiving information through their senses, right? Children need to touch things, hear things, see things, taste things, smell things, right? To promote thinking. So what are some examples maybe of activities or materials that we can provide our babies to sensory activities for children to help to promote thinking? Could be things like that ball that you see, right? Touching it, he's putting a space on it, right? He definitely, I have another picture where he's fully putting his mouth on it, right? He's learning about the ball using his senses, okay? Children, Piaget also believed that children use their motor abilities, use their body, okay, to help develop thinking, okay? So examples of motor abilities are touching things, grabbing things, pushing things, throwing things, banging things, right? Running, climbing, crawling, All of those things in partnership with using their senses is how children develop thought processes, according to Piaget. Okay, so this is the state that is assimilation. Oh no, this is accommodation. No, assimilation, the first one. Sorry, just kidding. So this is when assimilation is happening, right? Where they have limited schemas, right? Limited categories, okay? My 6-month-old grandchild is not going to treat that ball any differently than he would an egg, okay? Because he has limited schemas, okay? Limited categories for how to learn about objects, okay? All right, that is stage 1. Stage the second, oh, that's my other grandson, Theo. He is 5 in that picture. It's very recent. So the second stage that Piaget said that children go through, which is around 2 to around 7, is called the pre-operational stage, okay? So their thinking starts to mature, right? Their brain starts to become a little bit more complex, but nowhere near like adult thinking, okay? Their logic is incredibly different than ours, okay? Piaget really did emphasize that children are incredibly egocentric, okay? Egocentric. This is really important for us to understand, okay? That children under the age of 7-ish do have a really difficult time seeing that other people have a point of view, okay? The ability to empathize or understand that their actions have an effect on anyone else doesn't really start to happen until late 2, 3. Okay? It doesn't even start to happen. So when a 1-year-old hits you, they do not understand that it hurts you. They can't. Their brain cannot figure it out, okay? They're only learning still. They're learning about their environment, okay? They don't understand. They're not even able to understand until, close to 3 that everything in the world isn't theirs, okay? So a young child, that's why they can't share, right? That's why it's even difficult for a 4-year-old to share. Not because they're selfish. It doesn't mean that you're raising selfish children, right? Okay. It's because they have a very limited ability to understand that other people have emotions, right? I mean, if you really think about it, their brain is full-time working on learning about their world, right? Organizing things. They don't have time or the ability to worry about anybody else's feelings yet, right? Does that make sense? I hope, right? Like we should be modeling that for sure, so that when their brain is ready, they've seen that. But to demand them to share or demand them to say they're sorry when they couldn't possibly be sorry because they don't yet understand, right? They can't empathize, right? When you force those things, it really goes back to Erickson's theory emotionally of shame and doubt, right? Those are unrealistic expectations because their brain can't do that yet, okay? So we'll talk a little more about this as when we go into each age group. Their social emotional development. Really keep in mind and try to remember this Piaget's idea that children are incredibly egocentric until 6 or 7, okay? And sometimes later, depending on the kid. Children still need sensory play. They still need to use their body, okay? Very much, Piaget's theory that children are active learners does not stop at any point, okay? They are starting to learn representation of items, like language starts to happen in this age group, dramatic play, symbolic play, really starting to understand that there are ideas or materials or things that are representative of other things, okay? Like language and symbols and dramatic play. Like I said, thinking is not logical yet and very different than adults. They don't understand that things look different to other people or that objects can change in appearance. Time and calendar is an incredibly abstract ideas that their brains can't fully figure out yet at all. They need concrete. They're very concrete thinkers, not abstract thinkers. So really the idea of doing calendar activities with 4-year-olds is a developmentally unrealistic expectation, okay? And literally you could be doing so many other things during that time, okay? Relationships also is another example of abstract thinking. If you've ever talked to a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or maybe even a 5-year-old and tried to explain to them that their mom is also your sister, or your husband is, or their dad is also your husband, and they get really upset, like, no, that's my dad. No, it's not your husband, that's my dad, right? Or no, that's not your sister, that's my aunt. Their brain can't yet, okay, accommodate that new information, okay? Accommodation starts in these stages, right? It starts 2 or 3, okay? Starts, right? Being able to create new schemas or new categories, it starts, okay? So when I talked earlier about disequilibrium, okay, that idea of moving from one way of thinking about things to another, those typically happen in the even years, like 2-ish, 4-ish, 6-ish, 8-ish, right? So like moving from a 2-year-old, a baby toddler, into a 2-year-old that's more active, or a 3-year-old, right? Moving from 4-year-old into more abstract thinking, okay? So keep that in mind. So this accommodating happens in this stages, but very limited at the beginning, okay? All right, so that is Piaget. Again, if you have questions, hopefully you're writing them down, let us know and we can have a Zoom live. All right, let's move to Vygotsky. Vygotsky, love me some Vygotsky, okay? A lot of what I do in the school that I created in Riverside was based very much on Vygotsky's theories. Vygotsky was what is called he created what is called a sociocultural theory, okay? Sociocultural really means community, okay? He was a huge believer that we learn best from more skilled members of our community. And he called that guided participation. He was a huge believer in mixed age groups, that we learn best from more skilled members of our community. And we also learn from being the models or mentors of younger, less skilled members of our community. He believed that teachers should provide lots and lots of social interaction. That if we provide rich environments with materials that are appropriate to where they are currently and can get them to where they can go next in their development, that children will learn everything that they need. Customs, values, beliefs, language. That really our focus should be providing social interaction. Okay? He believed that children need language to organize their thinking. Vygotsky was not a stage theorist. I don't know if I put that on there. Okay, he was not a stage theorist. He believed that children just naturally will move forward in their development on a progression with the right social interaction and adults there to guide them. Okay. So the guidance that Vygotsky believed we should be providing is based on what he called the zone of proximal development. Okay, the zone of proximal development. Vygotsky believed our job as teachers, as the adults, is to identify and know constantly where children are developmentally, okay? That we are able to identify the skills, knowledge, and concepts that the child is close to achieving, but can't quite get there yet without some sort of guided participation. Now that guided participation can happen from their peers, right, or from us. Vygotsky believed optimum development happens when it's in play, in social interaction, not from adults teaching them. Okay, you did not believe that we should be teaching children anything. They will learn it through social interaction, guided participation. The adults' guided participation, Vygotsky believed, should be done through scaffolding. That's the term that Vygotsky used for how we should guide them. Okay? Scaffolding is the least amount of help, allowing them to still be the problem solver. Okay? The least amount of help. It might be through encouragement, clapping when a baby starts to begin to walk or even tries, right? It might be moving something when you see them start to reach their hand over to move from one piece of furniture to the other. It might just be moving the furniture closer, okay? Not teaching them how to do that. Babies don't need us to teach them how to walk. They have everything they need, right? Our job is to encourage them, provide an environment, okay? It could be as they get older. I think the book uses an example of if they're trying to do a puzzle, we might provide clues to them so that they are the ones solving the problem. As soon as we solve the problem for them, they're no longer learning perseverance, problem solving. You know, the next time something is difficult, they're going to look to us instead of trying to do that on their own. Okay, we should be creating environments, according to Vygotsky, where children are the problem solvers. Okay, so the zone of proximal development, okay, is that space in between. If you look at the visual right here, okay, right here, that space, that green space, that's the zone of proximal development. That's that space where between what children can do on their own, they've mastered it, and what they can't do yet. Our job is to really know that area so that we can either provide things in the environment, scaffold, right? Pair them with more skilled members of their peer group. As long as we're doing the guided participation in a way to where they're the ones in the process of figuring things out, right? That's the space where the learning and growth occur, that zone of proximal development. Okay? Any questions? Did it again.
Yeah.
I'm so used to doing this live, you guys. I'm still asking for questions. Well, I hope that that makes sense. That is Vygotsky and Piaget. Let me stop share real quick. Just want to close out reminding you that we will do a Zoom Live if anyone requests it. As soon as someone does, I'll send out an invite for everyone to join. If you can't, that's fine. We'll record it and do a transcript. Our office hours are still the same. You can find those on Canvas. And also, if you haven't done discussion 1, you might have not been put into a group already. Everyone is in a group now. If you haven't done discussion 1, go to Canvas and complete that assignment. You cannot pass the class unless you do every assignment. Also, after you, or as you see this recording available, you will see discussion 2 available. Those things will be on module week number 4. All right, that is it. Hope to hear from you. Have a great week. Anything, Jessica?
No, we're good.
Okay. All right.